A crow lands on the highest point of a dead saguaro and watches the road below the way things watch when they have all the time in the world and you don't. The road isn't a road anymore. It's a suggestion. Two pale ruts pressed into the hard pan by wagons that came through years ago and never came back. The kind of road that tells you where people used to go, not where they're going now. No wind, no shade, just white sky pressing down on red earth like a hand that's made up its mind. A man is digging, not looking for something, not in the searching sense. He knows exactly where it is. He's digging because he has to and because there is no one else. His hands have gone past blisters into something worse. He doesn't look at them. You learn that. After enough years in this country, you learn which things to look at and which things to leave alone. His name is Cole Ransom. He is 54 years old. He has a horse named Pitch, black as the name suggests, 17 hands, opinionated about everything and apologetic about nothing. He has a bedroll, a rifle, and a letter in his breast pocket that he has read so many times the fold lines have turned to tears. The letter is from his son. His son is 22 years old and in a great deal of trouble, and the trouble is the kind that doesn't wait. Cole doesn't know yet that the grave he's digging is not the one he thinks it is. He'd found the man at dawn, off the trail by maybe 30 yards, tucked against the shadow side of a boulder the way dying things go towards shade, even when shade can't help anymore. Old man, Apache, 60, maybe more. His breathing had the sound of something working too hard. Cole had knelt beside him and done the check that 40 years in open country teaches you. Pulse, pupils, skin color. The old man's eyes had opened. Not afraid, not relieved, just present, like he'd been waiting. Cole had made camp right there. He'd given water, given what food he had, rigged a lean-to from his bedroll and a mesquite branch. The old man had slept. Cole had waited. The crow had arrived sometime around midday and hadn't left since. Crows in the desert meant something. Cole had never decided what exactly. He just noted them the way you note certain clouds. When the old man woke, he spoke in Apache. Cole spoke none. They sat across from each other in the thin shade of the lean-to and figured out the edges of what they could share. Cole had a dozen words from years of trading. The old man had perhaps 20 words of English. Used them carefully, the way a man uses water when he's not sure how far it has to stretch. Hurt, walk, far. Cole pointed at the old man's left leg. The old man nodded. A bad ankle. Stepped wrong off a rock somewhere back there in the dark, Cole thought, or the day before, or longer. Long enough that walking on it had done more damage than the original fall. Cole said, "Town, north, 2 days." The old man shook his head. Not toward town, somewhere else. He pointed south, then east. Then he made a shape with his hands, 2 palms tilted upward and together like the pitched roof of a house, or like 2 stone walls leaning against each other. Cole knew that formation. Canyon of the Two Sisters, they called it in Benson. He hadn't been in 15 years. He pointed there. The old man's eyes said yes. Cole did the math. South and east meant away from Benson, away from the stage road, away from the post where his son's letter had been waiting 3 weeks before Cole found it. Every mile toward the Two Sisters was a mile away from the problem that had kept him awake for a month. He sat with that for a long moment. Then he started breaking camp. You don't leave a man with a broken ankle alone in the Sonoran Desert in July. That wasn't a decision. It was just a fact about what kind of person Cole Ransom was. He hadn't always been certain about that. He was certain about this. The old man's name, as near as Cole could work it out, was something that came out sounding like a long exhale. Say something, stone something. Cole landed on stone eventually, out of practicality, and the old man seemed to accept this with the tolerance of someone who has been called wrong things before and has made peace with it. Stone rode Pitch. This was not negotiable. Cole walked. Pitch had opinions about the new arrangement and shared them at length with his ears, then with a sideways step, then with a long silence that was somehow louder than either of the previous complaints. Cole walked beside him and said, quietly, "Nothing you want to say matters right now," and Pitch, eventually, walked. The desert that afternoon was the kind that doesn't apologize. The heat came from everywhere at once. Above, below, reflected off pale rock faces in sheets that bent the air at the edges. Cole's throat had gone dry by noon and stayed that way. He rationed the canteen. Stone watched him from Pitch's back and said nothing, and Cole appreciated that. There was a kind of dignity in not narrating the obvious. They didn't speak much. They'd already covered the shape of their language, what fit and what didn't, and filling the silence with approximations felt worse than leaving it empty. So they moved in quiet, and the desert moved around them, and the crow followed for a while, and then stopped following. And somewhere around mid-afternoon, the Two Sisters appeared on the horizon, 2 spires of red sandstone tilting toward each other in that distinctive lean, like 2 people sharing something private. Cole had seen them before. He remembered the first time. He'd been 19, riding through with a cattle crew, and the foreman had pointed at those spires and said something Cole had filed away and not thought about for 35 years. Something about water. Something about how the old-timers knew things about this country that you couldn't find on any map because nobody had written it down, because some knowledge lives in people and dies with them if nobody asks in time. He wondered now if the old man on his horse was that kind of knowledge. The canyon opened slowly the way good things do. Walls first, just the suggestion of walls, pale and distant, then closer, then suddenly present and enormous. 100 feet of striated sandstone on each side, squeezing the world down to a corridor of shadow and cooler air. Pitch lifted his head as the temperature dropped. Stone, who had been very still for the last 2 hours, stirred and sat straighter. He said something. Cole caught the word for water. I know, Cole said. He didn't know, but he believed. They moved deeper in. The light in the canyon was the kind that painters try to describe and usually don't get right because it isn't gold and it isn't orange. It's both and neither, and it moves the way living things move, like it has somewhere to be. Petroglyphs on the left wall. Animals, hands, spirals, things that had been here so long they'd become part of the stone rather than marks on it. Cole didn't look away from them immediately. He always stopped for petroglyphs, not out of sentiment. Out of the same reason, he always noted crows. Because some things deserve acknowledgement even when you can't explain why. Stone spoke again. More words this time. His hands moved, directing, pointing toward the right-hand wall at a place where the stone changed color slightly. Darker, like old moss or water shadow. Cole walked to it. He put his palm against the rock. Cool. Cooler than the surrounding stone by a degree that was significant in a place where degrees were the whole conversation. He pressed harder. Under his hand, the rock was not solid all the way through. There was a give to it, not movement, just the sense of space beyond. He stepped back, looked at it properly. A seam, vertical, running from about knee-height up to twice his reach, so subtle that if Stone hadn't pointed him at it, he would have walked past it the same way. He'd probably walked past it every other time he'd been in this canyon, which turned out to have been never, but the point stood. The kind of thing that hides by being exactly what it is. A crack in the desert. Nothing special, except when it was. Cole looked back at Stone. Stone looked at him. Behind that, Cole said. Stone said the word for water again. Cole took his knife from his belt. He worked the blade into the seam. Careful, not forcing it. The way you work a lock when you don't have the key and can't afford to break anything. The stone gave. Not much. Enough. He got his fingers in and pulled in a section of rock face. Not rock, he realized. Fitted stones, dry laid so carefully the joints had calcified to near invisibility, swung outward with a sound like something exhaling. Behind it, darkness. Then, as his eyes adjusted, not darkness. Water. A cistern, maybe 6 feet across, carved or naturally formed and then shaped. The walls smooth from generations of hands working them. Full. The water so still it looked solid. The color of the stone above it reflected back perfectly, so that looking into it was like looking at a mirror someone had placed at the bottom of the world. Cole crouched at its edge. He dipped one finger. Cold. Cleaner than anything he'd touched in a week. He turned to look at Stone. The old man had gotten himself off pitch. Cole didn't know how, with that ankle, but he'd managed, and was standing a few feet back, watching Cole's face with the expression of someone who has been waiting to see how a person reacts to something important, testing what the reaction tells them. Cole had seen that expression before. He'd worn it himself, in situations where you couldn't ask directly, but needed to know anyway. Cole said, "How long has this been here?" Stone was quiet for a moment. Then he said a word Cole didn't know. And then, carefully, in English, old. Long pause. Always. Cole made camp inside the canyon mouth. Pitch drank from the cistern and stood beside it afterward with the contentment of an animal who has decided a place is acceptable. Stone sat with his back against the carved stone wall, his bad ankle stretched out in front of him, and watched the last of the day come down the canyon walls in that slow vertical way canyon light falls, top to bottom, like something being poured out. They ate in the way of two men who have been hungry together, without ceremony, without wasted motion. Cole had hardtack and dried beef and a tin of peaches he'd been saving for a reason he couldn't now remember. He split everything evenly. Stone ate with the precision of someone who has learned not to take anything for granted. After, Cole built a small fire, not for warmth, for the company of it, the thing a fire does to the dark that makes it feel less like a decision the dark made about you and more like an arrangement you worked out together. He took the letter from his pocket. He didn't open it. He knew what it said. He'd read it enough times that it had stopped being words and become something closer to weather, always present, always changing what the day felt like without being the whole of the day. His son's name was Harlan, 22 years old, which meant the last time Cole had seen him Harlan had been 17, which was the year of the argument that Cole still couldn't fully reconstruct in the right order, the year things had shifted between them in a way that hadn't shifted back. 5 years of letters that took months to arrive and answers that took longer. 5 years of distance that was only partly geographic. The letter said, "I need you." It said, "I have done something." It said, "I don't know who else to ask." Cole looked at the fire. Stone spoke from across it. Cole looked up. The old man's eyes were on the letter in Cole's hand. "Trouble," Stone said. One word, but the inflection of a question. Cole looked at the letter for another moment. Then he folded it back into his pocket. "Son," he said. Stone nodded. He didn't ask more. That was the thing about him. He asked less than you'd expect and understood more than you'd account for. And the combination was either restful or unsettling, depending on the moment. Right now it was restful. After a while, Stone spoke again. More words than usual. Cole caught maybe a third of it. Something about the canyon. Something about the cistern. The word "always" again. And another word Cole didn't know. And then a word he did. "Father." And then another. "Father's father." He's telling me about the water, Cole realized. Who built it, or found it, or kept it. He's telling me how long this has been in his family. Cole thought about that. About what it meant to carry something across generations. Not land in the legal sense. Not a deed in a courthouse. But knowledge. The weight of knowing where the water was. The responsibility of that. Of being the one who knew and having to decide who else got to know. "Why me?" Cole asked. And then, slower, with gestures to help it land. "Why show me?" Stone looked at him for a long time. Cole had learned not to fill his silences. Let them be what they were. Then Stone said, "You came back." Cole shook his head slightly. "I've never been in this canyon." Stone shook his head in return. "Not the canyon." He pointed. The gesture was south and east, vague, encompassing. "Come back," he said again. "Not the canyon. The country. You belong to this country." Cole understood then, or thought he did. The way this territory got into you. The way it marked people who stayed. Some left, and the marks faded. Some left, and the marks didn't. Stone was saying he could tell the difference. Cole wasn't sure if that was wisdom or hope, but either way he held it. He said, "I'm going to my son. After this." Stone nodded as if this was information he'd already had. "I might not come back," Cole said, "depending on what I find." Stone looked at the fire. Then he said something in Apache that Cole didn't catch. And then, reaching into his own coat, the old man produced something and held it out across the fire. A small thing. A piece of folded leather, dark with age, thin enough that Cole could see it was wrapped around something flat. Cole took it, looked at Stone. "Open," Stone said. Inside the leather was a map, not drawn on paper, pressed into the leather itself, lines scored with something sharp, permanent, the kind of map that wasn't made in a hurry. Cole turned it in the firelight. He recognized the canyon formation, the 2 spires, and then markers he didn't know. Symbols that meant something to whoever made this, and presumably to Stone, and presumably now were being passed to Cole for a reason he hadn't caught up to yet. "Water," Stone said. He tapped several points on the map. Cole looked up. "All of these." Stone made the shape with his hands again. The roof shape, the 2 palms tilting together. "Hidden," Cole understood. All of them hidden the same way. The same fitted stones. The same seams. "This is the whole map," Cole said slowly. "This is all of it." Stone looked at him. There was something careful in his expression. The look of a man who has made a decision and is watching the consequences arrive. Cole said, "Why give this to me?" "Because," Stone said, and stopped. His English ran up against its limits. He tried another way. He touched his chest. Then he touched his ankle. Then he pointed south. "I'm the only one here," Cole finished for him. Stone nodded once. And then the second part, the part that landed heavier. "There is no one else left who knows." They sat with that. The fire talked to itself. Somewhere up at the canyon rim something moved. A rock shifted, fell, made the small definite sound of things finding their way down to where gravity wanted them. Cole looked at the map again. All those water sources, all that knowledge, pressed into a piece of old leather by hands that were gone now, handed across a fire in a canyon by a man who didn't know Cole ransom from any stranger on any road, except that Cole had stopped. Cole had made camp. Cole had gotten on foot so an injured man could ride. He thought about Harlan, 22, and in trouble and waiting. He thought about the 5 years and the argument he couldn't quite reconstruct and the letters that took months and the distance that wasn't only distance. He thought about what it meant to show up for something. Not the dramatic version. Not the version with speeches and reconciliation in perfect sentences. Just the actual version. Showing up. Being there. Letting the other person see that you came. He looked at Stone. "I'll come back," Cole said. "I'll go to my son and come back through here. If you're still." He stopped. Didn't finish the sentence because finishing it felt like the wrong kind of honesty. Stone read the gap in it. He almost smiled. The corner of his mouth moved in the way of a man who has been in enough situations where honesty and kindness didn't fully overlap and had made his peace with that. "Come back," Stone said. Not a request, just a statement of what he expected. The expectation of a man who understood people well enough to know when one was going to do what he said. Cole folded the map back into the leather, put it in his breast pocket next to the letter. The two things that mattered most, pressed against the same part of his chest. He said, "How far south are your people?" Stone told him, in words and gestures. 2 days, maybe 3. Cole thought. He thought about Harlan. He thought about the letter. He thought about the fact that you couldn't always do everything in the right order, that sometimes the order was decided by the particular geography of what was in front of you and who needed you first. He said, "I'll take you south before I go to my son." Stone looked at him, not surprised exactly, more like the confirmation of something he'd already suspected. Cole said, "It'll add time. Harlan's been waiting this long." Stone said nothing. Cole looked at the fire and said a thing he hadn't said out loud to anyone. "My son thinks I choose other things over him. He thinks it's a habit of mine." He said it plainly, without inflection, the way you say a thing that is true and that you have looked at long enough that the looking doesn't cost you what it used to. He might be right about that. I'm working on it. Stone was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "A man who works on a thing is not the same as a man who doesn't." Cole looked at him. Stone shrugged. Small gesture. The shrug of someone who has watched a great many people and drawn their conclusions and doesn't feel the need to dress those conclusions up. Cole picked up a stick and turned it in the fire. Sparks lifted and went out. After a while he said, "The map. After I've been to my son, I'll bring people who need to know where these are. People who are trying to stay in this country and being pushed out. You said there's no one left who knows. There can be." Stone was looking at him with that measuring look again. That first day on the trail look. Deciding. He said, "How do you know they can be trusted?" Cole said, "I don't. You'd have to decide that. Each time, you'd have to be there to decide, which means I'd have to bring them to you." Long silence. "Which means," Cole said, "you'd have to still be around." Stone almost smiled again. "You are difficult," he said. The English word careful and precise. "I've been told," Cole said. The fire burned lower. The canyon went dark from the bottom up, the walls holding the last of the sky in a narrow blue strip overhead that narrowed and finally went out. Cole lay back on his bedroll and looked at the strip of stars the canyon allowed. Not the full Arizona sky he was used to, just the portion the walls permitted. It seemed right. It seemed like the honest version of things. Not all of what's out there, just what you can see from where you are. He thought about Harlan. He thought about the argument and the 5 years and the letters and the distance. He thought about showing up, the actual version, the version without speeches. He thought about a 22-year-old who was in trouble and had written to his father, which was not a small thing to do after 5 years, which was in fact the largest thing a person could do, and whether you understood that while it was happening or only afterward. He understood it now. He reached into his pocket. Not the letter, the map. He held it without opening it, felt the leather under his thumb. Old. The work of hands that had loved this place enough to make something that would last. You can love a place and leave it, he thought. You can love a person and disappoint them. Neither one cancels the other out. The question is what you do next, and then what you do after that, and whether you keep doing it until it becomes the thing that's more true about you than the mistake was. He put the map back in his pocket. Stone, across the fire, was already asleep, breathing steadily. The calm of a man who has made the decision that needed making and let it go. Pitch stood at the cistern wall, eyes half closed, completely untroubled. The horse had known from the beginning that this was going to be fine. Cole was the last one to figure it out. He looked at the stars. Tomorrow south, then east, then whatever Harlan needed, which Cole couldn't know yet, but was going to find out. And then back through here, through the canyon, through the seam in the rock wall to the cold water behind it, with the map and the people the map was for, and the old man who would decide who was trustworthy enough to know what he knew. All of it. Everything at once, or as close to everything at once as a man could manage, which was what life actually asked of you. Not the neat sequence, not the solved problem, just the ongoing negotiation with what was in front of you, and what you owed, and what you could carry. He could carry this. He closed his eyes. The water in the cistern made no sound. It was too still for that. But he was aware of it. Cold, old, hidden behind stone, waiting the way things wait when they have been patient long enough that patience has become their nature. Not passive, not resigned, just present. Still there, it said, the same way it had been saying it for 100 years. Still here. Cole slept.